the blackened edge of a limestone shelf inside an old Judean cave is cold beneath the fingertips, even after the desert heat has pressed against the hillside all afternoon. Dust sits in the shallow cuts of the stone. The air smells dry, mineral, almost metallic. A few feet away, the darkness closes around the narrow passage where ancient manuscripts were once hidden. No clock hangs on the wall. No instrument measures the passing hours. And yet the oldest Enochic writings speak repeatedly about something that sounds remarkably like a clock. Appointed days, measured years, fixed boundaries, and a life whose course is known before the person walking it can see the path. The Book of Enoch was not simply ignored by accident. In the 4th and 5th centuries, church authorities were already separating accepted books from texts considered unsuitable for general use. The material associated with Enoch disappeared from most Christian biblical traditions in the West, while the Ethiopian church preserved it in Ge'ez. The reason was not that every line had been disproved. It was that its visions, angelic revelations, cosmic calendars, and judgment scenes did not fit comfortably inside the developing boundaries of the biblical canon. The result was extraordinary. A work that had once circulated among Jewish communities was pushed toward the margins, while its surviving witnesses continued to preserve a detailed picture of time, destiny, and judgment. Then the caves near Qumran changed the scale of the evidence. When fragments of Enochic literature were identified among the Dead Sea Scrolls, the text was no longer dependent on a much later medieval manuscript tradition alone. Aramaic fragments showed that major sections of the work existed in the Second Temple period. Pieces of one Enoch could now be compared with manuscripts separated from the surviving Ethiopian tradition by many centuries. The discovery did not prove every interpretation later attached to Enoch. It did something more important. It proved that ideas about heavenly schedules, appointed times, human mortality, and predetermined events belong to a much older textual world than many modern readers realize. The central claim is simple. The Book of Enoch presents human life as operating inside a hidden schedule whose boundaries are established before a person can understand or control them. In the next several minutes, you'll see what Enoch actually says about appointed days, measured lifespans, heavenly records, and the strange relationship between human birth and a timetable that appears to exist before human choice. If ancient descriptions of time, destiny, and hidden records fascinate you, hit subscribe. Every week, we uncover what was removed from scripture, history, and forgotten records. But here's what makes this stranger. The strongest evidence does not come from one mysterious sentence. It comes from a pattern spread across the text. In the Book of the Courses of the Heavenly Luminaries, usually known as 1 Enoch 72 through 82, the movement of the sun and moon is described through measured gates, numbered portions, seasons, and appointed transitions. In the Book of Dreams, the history of humanity is organized through symbolic periods. In the Epistle of Enoch, the language becomes personal. The text speaks about appointed days, the days of sinners, the days of the righteous, and the judgment that arrives at a fixed time. Scholars who study the Enochic corpus generally agree that these sections preserve different layers of ancient Jewish thought. The exact dates of composition remain debated, and the manuscripts are not all from the same period. But that debate actually makes one feature more interesting. The idea of measured time keeps returning. Different sections approach it differently, yet the underlying assumption remains. Human beings live inside an ordered creation, and the order is not invented by the people living within it. The Qumran fragments make this harder to dismiss as a late medieval idea. Aramaic Enoch manuscripts were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, including material corresponding to the Book of the Watchers, the Astronomical Book, and other Enochic sections. These fragments demonstrate that the Enochic tradition was active in the centuries before and around the beginning of the Common Era. They also show that ancient readers were preserving texts concerned not only with angels and judgment, but with calendars, appointed periods, and the structure of existence itself. And this is where it gets disturbing. What we're looking at breaks into 4 parts. The first part is the calendar. In 1 Enoch 72, the sun is described as entering and leaving designated gates on the eastern and western horizons. The text gives numerical measurements for the movement of the sun across the year. The point is not modern astronomy. The point is order. The sun does not wander randomly. Its path is assigned. The second part is the human schedule. In 1 Enoch 81, Enoch is shown heavenly tablets containing records of human deeds. The language of tablets matters because the text repeatedly imagines history as something already written in a heavenly register. Human beings act in time, but the record exists above human time. The third part is the appointed period. In 1 Enoch 92, Enoch introduces a sequence of instructions and visions concerning generations and the completion of history. The text moves toward fixed periods and an ultimate judgment. Elsewhere in the epistle, the righteous and wicked are repeatedly described according to their appointed portions and future destinies. The fourth part is death itself. Enoch does not describe mortality as an entirely uncontrolled event. Human life is bounded. Generations rise and disappear. Judgment has an appointed time. The world has an appointed order. The implication is not that every individual receives a visible countdown at birth. The implication is more precise. The text places every human life inside boundaries that are known within the heavenly order before they are understood from the human side. Now consider the modern parallel. In the 20th and 21st centuries, biology has shown that human aging is influenced by measurable processes. Telomere shortening, cellular senescence, DNA damage, epigenetic changes, and metabolic regulation all contribute to the biological aging process. Researchers do not describe these mechanisms as a mystical timer. They describe interacting systems that influence how cells function over time. That distinction matters. Modern science has not discovered an Enochian clock hidden inside every newborn. No laboratory has demonstrated a supernatural countdown encoded into a human embryo. But science has demonstrated something conceptually closer than earlier generations could have imagined. The body carries biological information that influences its trajectory from the earliest stages of life. Genes are active before conscious choice. Development follows programmed sequences. Cells divide according to regulated processes. Some biological changes accumulate with age. The human body is not a blank machine waiting for life experiences to write every detail from scratch. And this is where Enoch becomes interesting again. The ancient text is not describing chromosomes, telomeres, or epigenetic clocks. It is describing a universe in which time itself has structure, and human existence unfolds within that structure. The modern parallel is therefore not proof. It is an echo in concept, not confirmation in the laboratory. Here's what the translators left out. There is an important detail that standard modern readers can miss, because the Enochic language of appointed times is often flattened into ordinary references to days or periods. In the Ethiopic tradition and its underlying textual witnesses, the repeated concept is not simply that time passes. Time is assigned, portions are measured, Seasons have boundaries. Heavenly records preserve events. Human beings therefore appear inside a framework whose limits are established independently of their awareness. Why does that matter? Because the difference between time passes and time is appointed is enormous. The first describes a clock. The second describes an order. Enoch repeatedly emphasizes the second idea. The heavens follow their courses. The calendar has boundaries. Judgment arrives at its appointed period. The righteous receive their portion. The wicked have a measured end. The phrase does not prove that every person receives a supernatural timer before birth, but it explains why later readers could see in Enoch a concept of predetermined human boundaries. The text is concerned with the limits placed around existence, not merely with the movement of hours. The suppression starts at the Council of Laodicea in the 4th century. The historical record here needs precision. The Council of Laodicea, traditionally dated to the 4th century, is associated with a list of books permitted for church reading, but the exact history of its canon list and its authority is more complicated than popular summaries suggest. Enoch was not universally erased by one single decree. The process was gradual. Different Christian communities preserved different collections of books. By the late antique period, influential writers such as Jerome and Augustine helped shape Western Christian attitudes toward texts outside the emerging biblical canon. Enoch was increasingly treated as a work of interest rather than a standard scriptural authority. Yet it never completely disappeared. Ethiopic Christianity preserved the complete Enochic tradition. Other ancient writers continued to mention it. Fragments survived in Greek, and centuries later, scholars recovered additional witnesses from the Dead Sea region. The restriction was therefore not a single locked door. It was a narrowing corridor. As biblical canons stabilized, Enoch stood outside most Western collections. Its visions of angels, cosmic judgment, enormous chronological structures, and heavenly secrets made it difficult to place inside the dominant scriptural framework. But being excluded from a canon is not the same thing as being destroyed. The manuscript tradition continued. Then came the discoveries. When European scholars encountered the Ethiopic Book of Enoch in the 18th century, the text suddenly became available to a wider scholarly world. Later, the Dead Sea Scroll discoveries transformed the discussion again. Enoch was no longer only a strange book preserved in Ethiopia. Its Aramaic fragments demonstrated an ancient circulation that reached back to the Second Temple period. Now, here's where it gets active. In recent years, there has been no verified government operation proving that researchers are secretly removing Enoch manuscripts from archaeological sites because they reveal a hidden human timer. No credible excavation report demonstrates a modern conspiracy of that kind. What has happened instead is more ordinary and, in some ways, more revealing. Access to ancient manuscripts remains tightly controlled. Fragments have complicated ownership histories. Provenance disputes have affected research, and scholars continue to debate which fragments belong to which textual traditions. That matters because the real history is already unusual enough. Manuscripts can disappear into private collections. Provenance can be uncertain. Fragments can be separated from their archaeological context. Translations can differ. And when a text survives through multiple languages and manuscript traditions, small differences can change how later readers understand its claims. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that every human being has a supernatural countdown clock implanted before birth, or that the Book of Enoch provides a hidden mathematical method for predicting the exact moment of every person's death. The surviving evidence does not establish that. But what the Enochic text describes, when you look at it carefully, matches a broader and more defensible idea. Human life unfolds inside limits that exist before individual awareness, and ancient writers understood those limits as part of a larger order established beyond human control. The distinction is critical. Enoch does not give you a number to enter into a calculator. It does not tell you that your birthday contains a secret code revealing your final hour. It does not provide a scientific formula that modern researchers have overlooked. What it does provide is a framework. The heavens have appointed courses. History has appointed periods. Judgment has an appointed time. Human beings possess a limited span. Heavenly tablets preserve records, and the individual does not stand outside this structure. The individual enters it. That is why the language feels so modern. Today we speak about biological clocks, developmental windows, circadian rhythms, reproductive timing, aging pathways, and predictive biomarkers. These are scientific concepts with measurable mechanisms. Enoch speaks about appointed times, heavenly records, measured periods, and boundaries. The vocabulary is completely different. The underlying question is strangely similar. How much of a human life is determined before the person becomes capable of choosing? Science answers that question with probabilities and mechanisms. Enoch answers it with divine order. What we have to confront is the simplest explanation that fits the evidence. If the Enochic writings repeatedly describe time as measured and assigned, then the text is clearly presenting an ordered universe rather than an undefined stream of events. If the same tradition describes heavenly tablets containing records of human actions and future judgment, then ancient readers clearly imagined human history as visible from a higher level of reality. If the text repeatedly places generations, seasons, judgment, and mortality inside appointed boundaries, then human life is being presented as limited by conditions established before individual understanding. And if modern biology independently demonstrates that human development and aging operate through systems established long before conscious awareness, then the ancient language becomes worth examining without pretending that ancient scripture secretly contained modern molecular biology. That is the point most people miss. The evidence does not require the most extreme conclusion. You do not need to believe that a glowing number is assigned to every newborn. You do not need to believe that researchers have secretly decoded a universal death timer. You do not need to turn every biological process into proof of an ancient prophecy. The stronger conclusion is smaller. The Book of Enoch presents existence as structured before human beings can perceive that structure. It treats time as something assigned, not merely experienced. It treats history as something recorded, not merely remembered. It treats human mortality as bounded, not infinite, and it repeatedly directs attention upward toward a system of order that exists beyond the individual. That is not a casual idea. It changes the way the ancient text reads. The calendar is no longer just a calendar. It becomes evidence of order. The heavenly tablets are no longer just a strange image. They become a picture of knowledge, existing before human memory. The appointed days are no longer just poetic language. They become boundaries. And human birth becomes the beginning of participation in a structure that was already moving before the individual arrived. There is one final caution. The Book of Enoch is not a modern scientific manual, and modern science does not confirm its supernatural claims. The responsible reading is to separate what the manuscripts actually preserve from what later interpreters want them to prove. The ancient evidence is strong enough without adding inventions to it. The Enochic writings really are ancient. The Qumran discoveries really did preserve Aramaic Enochic material. The text really does contain detailed descriptions of heavenly courses, appointed periods, records, judgment, and human mortality. And those features really do explain why the work remained important to some ancient communities, even after it disappeared from most biblical collections. The mystery is therefore not that someone found a secret clock hidden inside the human body. The mystery is that thousands of years ago, writers were already asking whether human existence unfolds inside a schedule that the individual cannot see. They were asking whether the heavens move according to assigned boundaries, whether history has a fixed completion, whether judgment has an appointed hour, whether human life has limits known before the person living it understands them, and whether the record of a life can exist somewhere beyond the reach of ordinary memory. And there is another detail worth holding on to. Enoch's concern with records means that time is never presented as empty space. Events matter because they are observed, measured, and remembered. A human life can appear brief from the ground while belonging to a much larger sequence from the perspective of the heavens. That difference in perspective is central to the text. The person sees today. The heavenly record sees the sequence. This also explains why the language of birth is so important even when Enoch does not provide a literal prenatal timer. Birth marks entry into a process already underway. A generation does not create the calendar, it inherits it. A child does not establish the seasons. The child arrives inside them. A person does not choose that human life has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Those boundaries are already present. So when later readers describe Enoch as revealing a hidden timer, they are translating a much older idea into modern language. The translation can be useful if it is understood as metaphorical shorthand for predetermined boundaries. It becomes misleading when it is treated as a literal scientific device. The manuscripts support the first idea far more strongly than the second, and that distinction makes the surviving text more interesting, not less. Because once the sensational layer is removed, the ancient question remains intact. How much of the path is already established before the traveler knows where the path leads? The limestone shelf in that Judean darkness does not answer those questions. It does something quieter. It preserves the place where the evidence survived. Dust still gathers in the cuts of the stone. The surface remains cold after sunset. The passage remains narrow. The cave remains silent. No visible clock hangs there. No number glows on the wall. But the ancient words that emerged from places like this still speak about measured days, appointed boundaries, and a human life moving through time that it did not create. The shelf is still there, still cold beneath the fingertips, still holding the silence around the place where ancient words were hidden, exactly the way the surviving record allows us to see it. The human being enters time, but does not invent the time. The clock, if there is one, is not hanging on the wall.